Greetings, my people of the southern Cameroons. Greetings, fellow Amazonia, brave warriors of our liberation movement. You're welcome to this very special and important broadcast this day. This broadcast today is dedicated to, a lot of the internal workings in our liberation movement. On this communication today, we will be looking at some of the problems that we are facing in our movement. We will be examining the causes of some of these problems. We shall be trying to understand exactly what is happening within the interim government led by Comrade Sako Samuel. And to do that, I will have with me on this program Comrade Chris Anu. And Comrade Chris Anu will be here to take as many questions as possible on all manners of issues relating to the ongoing turmoil within that interim government. And so, without much ado, I'd like to introduce to you Comrade Chris Ano. Hello, Chris.
Hello, comrade. It's a pleasure to be on your show, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Chris. Ano, how is it out there in Houston today, in the Lone Star State?
It is hot and, of course, very, very beautiful.
Great. I'd like us to begin first of all by casting a general view on our liberation movement about 5 years on. When you look at the struggle of the people of the southern Cameroons, of the people of Amazonia for freedom today, what would be your general overview? Will you say we have made progress or we have rather retrogressed from the way things started late 2016 through 2017 to this day?
I would say rather we have made tremendous progress. John, you will recall that all of us jumped into this thing at the declaration of war by La République du Cameroun, something that we did not expect them to do, but Biya declared war on November 30th, 2017, taking all of us unawares. We did not surrender. We did not give up. We did not tremble. We took the challenge, and our boys on the ground also decided to pick up the challenge to challenge La République du Cameroun. 5 years into the war, 5 years actually, and counting into the war. You will recall that they called us 2 cubes of sugar, and the idea was in 2 weeks, they will finish with the southern zone and move up to the northern zone and crush it within 2 weeks. But 5 years and counting into the struggle, I think everybody would agree that we have gone a long way, even to the chagrin and surprise of La République du Cameroun. We have given them a good match for their army and their money. We have not taken territories yet, but we have been able to graduate from rubber guns to den guns to AKs to Le Fancies and Fontem Asonganyes to RPGs within 4 years of the declaration of war. We have rallied international diplomacy. We've been to people that matter, of course, not enough, as we all will agree. But at least we have taken this cause to the international community, and we have the international community now talking about it. We have also rallied all of the diaspora together. Though we are in different groupings, I think the diaspora has essentially come together, be it under the interim government, be it under any other group. The diaspora has been gathered, and the diaspora remains determined to see that the war is funded and prosecuted to the end. So, at the moment, you will think that La République du Cameroon is thinking that, oh, they are in crisis, they are in problem, they call it fighting or infighting, and they think that the end has come. Let me assure everybody, in La République du Cameroon, the end is too far to come. However, if they want to end it now by coming to the table to negotiate with Ambazonians, that end will be inside. But until then, if you think that the end is near because Ambazonians are going to surrender, that is not coming very soon. It's not even coming, ladies and gentlemen. It is not coming because I don't know. I just don't know how we can lose 30,000 people, over 400 settlements razed down, then thousands, hundreds of thousands of refugees in foreign lands, schools destroyed, hospitals destroyed, over or close to 1 million internally displaced. And you think that we can just lay down our tools and surrender and ask the Republic of Cameroon for negotiation? Now, let's note this. We are not asking La République du Cameroun for negotiation. They are asking us or should ask us for negotiation. Because if we ask them for negotiations, it's like we want to cut and run. We are not going to cut and run. We will fight until they say the last man standing.
Comrade
And
Chris,
we have done a lot in 5 years.
yes, Comrade Chris, I want to pick you up directly on that particular issue you raised there, that we will not ask La République du Cameroun for negotiations. We rather think that they should come to us for negotiations. But what you say appears to be completely at pass with the approach that the act to which, you and your government belong. That is, with us virtually like running behind this issue of negotiations. Whereas the idea rather should be that we get La République du Cameroun to a place where they become the ones seeking those negotiations. What do you say to this?
John, there is nothing contradictory about that, about what I have said. In you know that every conflict ends at the negotiation table. Now, in our case, you will recall that ARC, neither ARC nor the interim government, asked for negotiations. The Swiss came to us for negotiations. We did not go to them. It will interest you to know that phone call came to me from the Swiss, and I took it to the interim government. Act was then formed, and so on and so forth. No, it is not a weakness to think that we are talking about negotiation, but at the same time we do not want to go talking to La Republic for negotiation. This is the difference. This is the difference. We are not rushing to go for negotiations. We are not, because that is when we are then considered weak. But
But come
we,
Yes,
but
but
we
Comrade
are.
Chris, I have it. I rather have it on record because this actually was brought to me to my attention by the Swiss. Because I recall Mr. Alexandre Lebeskin shared a document, a letter with me that was dated 18 December 2018 and signed by Sebastien Barrico, who was then the PA to Comrade Samuel Sako, in which your interim government was requesting the Swiss embassy, that requesting the Swiss government through the Swiss embassy in Yaoundé to come in and mediate. And this like contradicts or contrariates what you are saying. It's true that this perhaps is not the key subject matter of our discussion, but let's just brush it over though.
Yeah, but yeah, I am not aware of that letter, and that is not to say that it may not exist. What I will say to you is, I received a phone call. I think when we had the ASSC in Germany, that was when I received a phone call from the NGO HD. HD, and they were trying to meet with us to discuss possible negotiations with La République du Cameroun. The document you are quoting there, I have no idea about it, but of course, when you are approached, other things then happen. So it is possible a letter like that was written, but for the record, they approached us first. They came to us.
Okay, awesome. I think that clarifies a lot of things because you will recall that the ASSC was in 2019, and this document from the Swiss, or rather, that was sent by Mr. Mbariko at the behest of Comrade Sako to the Swiss embassy, was in December of 2018, which is an indication, therefore, that HD, as they explained to me, were following up on the letter that they received. So let's come away from this subject matter, Comrade
Well,
Chris.
Comrade John, you will agree that if they were actually following up on the letter they received, they will not be calling me. They will call the phone numbers on that letterhead, isn't it?
Well, I should say that it depends on approach. Perhaps before reaching out to
I mean,
you,
they
they
will not
might
be
have tried to
wondering,
reach
they will
to
not
other
be, I
quarters.
mean, the letter will not be, if they had actually received a letter from Sebastian, as you said, they would have replied to that letter or called the phone number, but they called me while I was actually in Germany. I took it to the interim government and we then reached out to them to discuss the way forward.
I guess
So
you are aware. I guess you are
your
aware
dates
that
are not accurate.
I guess you are aware that before the ASSC in Germany, we all were even already in discussion with the Swiss because the Swiss had already reached out. You recall the ASC was somewhere in May of 2019. But like I said, the Swiss overture was much earlier than that. And if you recall, in a broadcast on February 1, 2019, I was already announcing the arrival of the Swiss as some kind of French surrogates. Like I said, we should be able to have time to uh, put our various thoughts and thoughts together and come up to something that will be more understandable both to us all and our audience. But all the same, what you pointed out is the way to go. We make sure we get La République du Cameroun to the place where they start running for negotiations. That absolutely should be our approach. And I'm delighted that we all share that view. So, Comrade Chris, let's come away from that. We are 2 days, I think 2 or 3 days away from February 11. I've heard a lot of various groups, movements, and organizations calling for a lockdown on February 10, that on February 10 and 11. What is your posture on that?
Well, you may have heard the announcement I made I think that was yesterday, calling for a lockdown for Thursday the 10th, and Friday the 11th. You will also hear other announcements out there coming from the ANSC, which happens to also be uh, the military arm of the interim government. So, yes, we have called for lockdowns for Thursday and Friday. And let me say this. I think our people are smart and intelligent enough to know that even without a lockdown, John, you should be very much conversant of this. Without a lockdown, without calling for a lockdown, I think our people are smart and intelligent enough to know 11th February is not a date that any ambassador should want to go there to commemorate. La République du Cameroon will not allow us celebrate our Independence Day of October 1st. But you see, 11th February, 20th May, two dates that make absolutely no sense to our history. These are the dates they want us celebrating. So without a lockdown, Ambazonians know 11th February is an abomination to all of us, and nobody should even be thinking about it. The days that we were forced to celebrate it under the sun and sing praises to La République du Cameroon's leaders, those days are gone. We are in a new age, a new generation, a new country. We must celebrate that which truly represents us. And 11th February is not one of them.
I think I should be delighted at least that for one moment about all the groups, movements, and organizations in our liberation struggle all agree on at least this particular thing that on the 10th and on the 11th of February, our people all across Amazonia, all across the national territory, should stay home. Now, Chris, let's move from these generalities into some key and interesting aspects regarding the ongoing turmoil within your interim government. I noticed that there's a lot of talk going on social media here and there. What is the genesis of this crisis? What will you say resulted to this? Because the first time I came face to face with the fact that there could be something not going on right was when I watched you talking about the interim government or the president of that interim government protecting one woman. What is the genesis of this problem?
Well, I will not describe it a tumor as you do, but I would say a crisis. A crisis simply because when you have a leader who is incapable of resolving problems, then it grows to what we have now, to the crisis that we have now. You have heard labels such as coup leader, coup plotters, black legs, and so on and so forth. Of course, most of those, at least for supporters of Dr. Sako, they label them at me, suggesting that Chris started all of this. I will claim it. Yes, I did, but I did for the good and for the interest of this struggle, not just the interim government, of the struggle. Because when you have an interim government that is reduced to a little cabal sitting behind back rooms, taking decisions and bringing it onto cabinet and onto the people through executive orders, we don't have a country yet. John, we don't have a country yet. If at this moment we cannot have leaders who are consultative, who will bring issues to the table, put them on the table, and say, what do you think? How can we make this better? How can we refine this? If at this moment we cannot have leaders who think like this, but only think that they can pacify you when you raise critical issues, then it becomes a problem. And that is why there is a problem in the interim government. In the interim government, you have a woman, as I said, spreading her tentacles. Now, I use the word spreading legs. Let me explain that a little bit, Comrade John. When you have a department, take my department for instance, communications, but I am in defense, I am in your local government, I am in your county, I am in the treasury, I am everywhere. You have moved your legs. You have spread your legs from where they should be. That is the context of that statement. So when you have a lady who is not only doing this, but leaking information, classified information from cabinet to surrogates, and who knows, perhaps to La République du Cameroun, it will surprise you to know I was traveling to an African country and my travel was late and La Republic, they tracked me at the airport in Ethiopia. This is the first time I'm saying this publicly. And only two people in cabinet knew where I was traveling. Only two people. But I was tracked in Ethiopia. I was shocked when I got the news. So when you sit in a cabinet where one woman is persistently leaking information and the leader who should do something about it pays a blind eye, he should be called for it.
Chris,
But
there are two things that you have said there that I just want to interrupt you quickly and let us be able to understand it fast before we go. So, when you say that this lady leaks out information, of course, I know you are talking about Irene Gua because I mean her name is out there and is out there. When you say she leaks out information, and you say you got to Addis and you realize that your travel was leaked to La République du Cameroon,
yeah,
do I understand that this leak that you mean that you are talking about means actually that this lady could be in league with La République du Cameroun?
I do not want to say categorically that she leaked my travel because she was not one of the two persons aware. But one of the two persons aware of my travel was a president who is now using her as his prime minister. So I wouldn't be surprised if that information was leaked to her. But again, I am not sure whether she did so. But the fact remains, my travel itinerary was leaked and I was monitored in Ethiopia.
Now, and then the next thing that you say is she spreads her tentacles everywhere, or like you said, spreading her legs. I understand that you mean by she's absolutely everywhere, but let's say she's resource mobilization. And so, as resource mobilization or someone who has to do with, handling finances for the entire organization or the entire body, perhaps it makes sense for her to be everywhere.
You are very correct. You make an important point there, comrade. However, you will agree that no matter what your responsibilities are, you still have boundaries. Let me give you a good example of ABC. The drafts are done every year for the past 2 years. And the counties go first, and then any other department, normally ABC comes next after the counties. Now, the rules state that before a county is drafted, there have to be an audit to make sure that funds for the previous draft were properly used. There is what we call the IOC, intergovernmental something committee. The IOC would have to go to every county to take record to ensure that the counties are ready to draft. Now, among ensuring those records is making sure that the county is audited, has been audited to make sure that they can be trusted with more finances. Now, ABC is not one of them. ABC is a department of the government, and ABC doesn't need an audit before ABC is drafted. But you
Why?
have this, now the terms of reference are clearly there that state that it is the counties that have to be audited to make sure they're in right standing financially for a draft to take place. Not any department, not communications, not HSS, not foreign affairs, none. The terms of reference are clearly stated and they are there, they exist.
But
But
Comrade
you
Chris,
find,
don't you think it could be ideal normally to audit every department? If they can audit the local government area or the LGAs, it may also make sense to audit all the departments. Is the bone of contention that it was only ABC they were trying to audit and not other departments, or that ABC was being audited at all?
okay, no. That makes sense, but this is it. The departments are excluded. Again, there's a term of reference. We are working with the term of reference that says counties that are drafting have to be audited before they can go in for the next draft or qualify for the next draft. It doesn't say the departments. The reason being that the controller general or the auditor general can come in at any moment to audit any of the department. They don't have to wait until a draft to audit a department. That is the reason. So when you now have this woman coming in, who is neither from the comptroller's office nor from the auditor's office, coming to ABC, for instance, and demanding an audit. It is not enough in our duties to go to any department to demand an audit. It is the duty of the Comptroller General, not even the Treasurer, the Comptroller General and the Auditor General. These are the only two institutions or units that can come or go to any department at any time and request for an audit. But when she comes to ABC and demand one, I challenge her and said, that is not in your terms of reference. You want an audit here, go and meet the Comptroller General and it will surprise you. It will surprise you. By the time she came demanding for an audit, the Comptroller General was in a 2 months audit of ABC. And as we spoke, that was still going on. She had no idea. If she was performing, doing the right job, she wouldn't be coming to ABC to ask for an audit when it wasn't her place. But let me also add this. She came demanding for an audit only because she thought she could use that to stop an ABC draft, which was desperately needed with immediate effect to save the news and to save the satellites. So,
What could have been her interest in stopping an ABC draft? Did she want the television to shut down? Why do you think she
well,
absolutely wanted to, interrupt a draft of the ABC?
let me
What
tell
could have
you
been her
what was going
interest?
on. Let me tell you what was going on. They put out the draft program for 2021. And as I said, the departments will come in after. ABC would come in right after the last county. Now, when the program was put out, I think they had like 2 or 3 drafts and the thing grinded to a halt. There was no draft for about 2 months. But at the same moment, ABC was going under. ABC was going under. I had to go on the air to raise $6,000 for those who were broadcasting news on ABC to be paid. They had gone home and refused to return to the studio or to work. I had to go on ABC to raise $6,000 for those bills to be paid. ABC runs on 2 satellites. One had been shut down already, and we were left with one. Now, the one that was left was owing 2 months arrears to the satellite company. So I called a meeting of the department and said, now that the drafts have come to a halt, let's see if we can squeeze ABC in there so we can get some immediate money to take care of these bills before the other satellite is shut down and before the workers, the news team walks away. That was why we needed ABC audit very urgently. When we agreed in the meeting that let's draft on October, I think it was October 3rd, I sent the director of ABC and the board chair of ABC to meet resource mobilization so they could plan it together. That was when they came out with, no, they thought we were trying to make them do their job. That was a problem. We were trying to make them do their job. All the counties are scheduled. The counties all have to be drafted before ABC can be drafted. And we said ABC is being shut down. One satellite is gone. The news is about to go. But I think they felt like we want to teach them how to do their job. All the counties must draft first before ABC. That was a problem.
When all this was going on, Comrade Chris Anu, did you contact your boss? Did you
Oh
reach out
yeah. Oh yeah.
to Comrade Sako to tell
Let me
him this is what is happening and explain to him the circumstances concerned and then the dangers ahead that you were about to be off the air? Did you make him to understand this?
listen. He was very much aware of the difficulties at ABC. Prior to this, I had spoken to him and we agreed. He decided, the way ABC was set up, the LGAs supposed to be funding ABC. Unfortunately, that was agreed from Berlin, the ASC conference. The LGAs supposed to be funding ABC, I think $150 every month. Unfortunately, the majority of the LGAs don't do it. They don't pay. And so, when I realized that things were going under, I called the president and we had a discussion. Then we also had a meeting with a few leaders within the department, and it was the president who suggested what he is going to do. He will go into the treasury. Uh, LGAs having money in the treasury, the money will be taken from the treasurer direct to pay ABC. That was how desperate it was. So if an LGA or county had money in the treasury and wasn't paying ABC dues, the money will automatically be taken from the treasurer and used in taking care of this situation. This was a promise. It did not happen. In that same meeting, he suggested if we cannot afford both satellites, then let's shut down one and stay with one. That was how one was shut down. Now, listen to this. We go into an APP meeting, and the APP listened to the situation at ABC and decided right there in that meeting to do an emergency fundraiser to take care of some of these bills, especially the satellite that was already owing 2 months and the one satellite left. They decided an immediate fundraiser should be made right in there in that meeting. And then it will spread out to other fora for other Amazonians to contribute. Now, the next day, Irene put out an audio, and this is what she says. She says, the treasurer, the national treasurer, is paying ABC bills. Oh, that's what she said. And she added, only resource mobilization can conduct a fundraiser, essentially challenging the effort of the APP to do this fundraiser to save ABC. Now she says the National Treasury is paying ABC bills, yet one satellite is down already. The only satellite left is owing 2 months, and the news is about to be shut down. I hope it makes sense to you. It was then again I called the president and I said, Mr. President, I expected you to call this woman to order. You know that ABC satellite has been shut down and we're owing 2 months in one. And the news is about to be shut down, something that was making ABC become really popular. It is about to be shut down. And this lady is out there spreading lies just to sabotage an effort by the APP to raise funds to sustain ABC. And I said, Mr. President, you have to call her to order. If you don't call her to order, forget about me in that cabinet. That was the moment I walked out of cabinet.
And what was his reaction?
The reaction was, uh, well, how much does ABC need now uh, to come back up? And my response was, Mr. President, at this moment, it is no longer about the money. It is about having a handle over the cabinet, over the interim government. Let me explain some other things to you that I have not explained anywhere. You would recall the statement made by that woman that Secretary Chris was on vacation when she came over ABC conducted. No, when I say spreading legs, you can understand what I mean when you look at this. You leave your department, go to another department, communications in that matter, and you host a press conference. And when asked about what the whereabouts of the Secretary of Communications, she says the Secretary of Communication is on vacation. It will surprise you listening to the sound of my voice. The Secretary of Communication was never informed about that press conference. Never informed. Now, assuming that I was on vacation or I was away, as she suggested, I have two under secretaries in the department. If I was on vacation or away anywhere, shouldn't you think that my two under secretaries should come in and fill the gap? But let's also assume that my two under secretaries were also on vacation. In the State House, we have what is called State House Press Department or Press Unit. Anything that would have to do with PR would have to be handled by either the Department of Communications or the Press House, the State House Press Department. If she was intelligent and smart enough, she would have known that if Chris is not there, the two undersecretaries should be there to do that, or the State House Press Department should be there. I mean, John, you know what I'm talking about here. That's the way it should work. But this lady comes in and say Chris is on vacation, whereas Chris had no idea. It would surprise you. None of my two under secretaries knew there was a press conference. One of them called me the evening before that press conference. In fact, that was how I got to know about it. He called me the evening around midnight. He said, Secretary Chris, I need to produce the press conference. I have just been called. This is what he said. I have just been called to produce the press conference of tomorrow, early in the morning. That press conference was to take place like around, I think around 4 a.m. Texas time. So he calls me and said, I have been called to produce the press conference of tomorrow morning. I need access to the set. And I was like, a press conference? Who is organizing a press conference? He told me. That was how I got to know about it. A few hours to it. Now they go there and she said, Secretary Chris is on vacation. Comrade John, I give you another a very, very scintillating example here. Look at this. The first press conference we did with the media in Nigeria after Ayaba Namdi alliance, we wanted to, we realized that the Nigerian government was taking that thing damn seriously. And we thought we got to distance ourselves from it, because if we do not, it is now affecting our refugees and our people on ground one. The Nigerian government is going after them. They do not know the difference between Ayaba and the interim government. They recognize all of us as Amazonian. So we thought we should do some PR. I was supposed to travel over there to Nigeria to organize one. Thank God, Aringwa had made some connection with one actor or something like that in Toronto, who happened to know a lot of these Nigerian media guys, and he opted to help us bring those guys together into a virtual press conference. We get into a little meeting to organize this. And the president said after the meeting, okay, Secretary Chris, please take over from here. Let's get this thing done. And I turned to this guy who was bringing in the reporters for us and said, let me get your phone number just in case I need to get back to you for anything. And the moment he is about to give me his phone number, Aringwa says, oh, not to worry, not to worry. I will give Secretary Chris your number. I give Secretary Chris your number. Guess what? She gave me the wrong number deliberately. Deliberately. She gave me the wrong number. How
And
did
why
I
do you
know?
think she did that?
Listen to me. We do the press conference, the stories begin to get published. There are so many errors. In fact, in one of the reports, they refer to Dr. Sako as Dr. Cho Ayaba. That's what was going on. And of course, knowing that these are digital stories, I knew that with a phone call they could do the corrections. So I went back to Aringwa and said, please, I need the phone number of this guy. I need to get back to him for these corrections to be done. Guess what she said? Just send them to me and I forward it to him. Can you imagine that? So I should send them, I should send the corrections to her to then send to this guy.
Now
The
let
number
me
she
let,
gave
let
for
me
the
ask
guy
you
would
this.
never go through.
Let me ask you this intriguing question. How was the financing being taken care of? The financing of that press initiative. Perhaps that's why she didn't want to give you the contact, because maybe you didn't need to move your eyes into something that didn't concern you.
That is very possible. I can swear that as I speak to you today, I do not know how much, even as communication secretary, how much was paid. How much was paid for that press conference? I have no idea, and I have no idea where the money came from because I was told that first of all, they put out a little statement in the fora that Aringwa paid the press conference from her pocket. A few minutes after they withdrew it and said friends of Aringwa or something like that paid for the press conference. How much? We have no idea. Now let me touch on something that they try to pass around to blackmail me over these press conferences. Listen, as I said to you, uh, Namdi and Ayaba's alliance uh, the Nigerian government began to go after our people, our refugees in particular. And we had also received some intelligence that French Cameroon soldiers were going to attack Nigerian communities in the border areas, so that Nigeria will now say the Ambazonia Biafra alliance is now working with attacks in the boarding communities in Nigeria. We got that information and we thought we should also pass it to the media in Nigeria. But above all, we really wanted to make sure that the Nigerian government understands that there's a difference between the interim government of Ambazonia and AGOV. We needed them to know that the interim government of Ambazonia essentially prosecutes this war, and so we should not be associated with any alliance entered into between Ayaba and Namdi. So I suggested it to the president, and the president said, it's a great idea. We need to do it before Nigeria takes some action against our people there. What should we do? I said, I know a guy in Nigeria, and you may know him if you know Robin Abati. He's a
Sure.
very popular, you know him. He's a very popular, you know him, of course. He's a very popular. When I worked in Nigeria, he was the editor of the Guardian. He became the spokesperson for Good Luck Jonathan. He is well respected. At that moment, he had done uh, some opinion piece in his morning show on Arise TV on Ambazonia, and he was on the money as if he had spoken to any of us. And so, being that I knew him, I thought if I reach out to him, we could use him to shoot two birds, to be like a consultant for us over there, and also to use him to get to the press, Nigerian press. So I said, let's get to him. And if it means settling him to help us, let's do it. Again, was a great idea to the impeached president. Now, I tried to get his contacts. I got like three phone numbers for Ruben Abati. None of it went through. But we had to do something. So I said to the president, the only option, no, the second option was when we didn't get Abati. I knew a number of media houses, some journalists in media houses, in channels, in AIT, in ACN, quite a number of them. And I brought them in and I talked to one of them and said, if we were to do TV interviews with you, how much is it going to cost? He gave us 3,000, was it 3,000 or $4,000? One of those. And we were really excited. We thought $3,000 was for the whole show, for four media, four TV houses. So I went to the president and said, this is the deal. We were ready to go for it. I went back to this guy to confirm the deal, and he said to me, no, I meant 3,000 for each media house.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I said, well, there's no way we can do that. Even if it is 2,000, there is no way we can do that. Just imagine doing four TV houses for, is it 8,000 or so? Yeah. So it was going to be a lot of money. So that deal ended there. But one of them dropped an idea in my head, and it made a lot of sense. He said the cheapest way you can get this done is to come to Nigeria and host a press conference. And I remember the moment he said that, I remember the press conference I held in Abuja when Sako was picked up. I think all that I spent for that press conference, including my air ticket, hotel, and everything, was a little over 5,000. And so I thought, yeah, and then you have like 25 media houses in the press conference. I thought it made a lot of sense. I went back to the impeached president and we discussed about it, and that was going to be the final route to take. So a few days after, he then called me and said, Irene has has some contact in Canada, and they can rally these guys together, and we will do this press conference. And I said, okay, if it is going to be cheaper, then let's do that. But this is the reason I'm bringing you this story. You will not believe these guys. They will do everything to smear you, to paint you black, to vilify you, to just do everything to rub you in the mud. Sako and Irene now go out with the narration that Secretary Chris was asking for. I think they said 12,000 or 7,000 or 8,000, one of those. For the press conference that Irene were organized, they said for 2,000, which I'm not sure, again, I don't know how much they paid. But this is the information they carried out. When I walked away from cabinet, they told people Chris is away because Chris was asking for some 12,000 for a press conference Irene were organized for 2,000 or so.
But Comrade Chris,
was running away from an audit. Yeah,
Comrade Chris, I want to find out, don't you think perhaps that when you were faced with some of these issues and you had raised the complaint to your boss, that perhaps walking out of the cabinet in reaction, don't you think it was a bit so reactionary? Don't you think it seemed perhaps as if you were either blackmailing your boss and the entire government, or you're holding a gun over their heads to either do what you want or, nothing? That's either your way or the highway.
Okay, that's a very good point, and you've heard some people said, or some people say Secretary Chris gave the president an ultimatum. Let me tell you, you have heard of a coup letter. I'm sure you heard about a certain coup letter that never existed. In March 2021, I wrote a memo to cabinet in which I listed our successes and I listed our failures, and then I made recommendations. And included in the recommendations was the idea that we should start bringing people back into the movement. Now, you will agree with me, especially in the interim government. Lots of people have left the interim government. People whose money we need to prosecute this struggle. I thought the moment had come we could reach out, bring back these people into the fold. We cannot stay in an organization where members, we keep on losing members and adding or growing numbers. So I suggested, let's start bringing in these people. Now, it didn't sound good. It didn't. In fact, I stated that if we do not do that, the moment we come, we may have nobody giving us money to run the struggle. Again, that was March 2021. Before writing that piece, the cabinet had been split for over 6 months. I mean, as of March 2021, the cabinet was dysfunctional, leakages, fighting, and you have a president who will just do nothing. I cannot count the number of times. Let me tell you something. Myself and the impeached president, we would talk like 3 hours, like 2 hours. It is like there was. It isn't like there was no communication. Absolutely not. I would call him like a friend, like a brother, and give my opinion, suggest what I think can be done. It is always great, 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 but nothing, I mean, nothing will be done. It is the same thing other cabinet members will tell you. They'll call, they make suggestions to the crisis within, and nothing is done. So when I walked out, it wasn't abrupt or disrespect. In fact, before I walked out, I had again called him 2 months before that. People who were in cabinet will confirm. I left a note in the cabinet after speaking with him, in which I said, I have spoken with the president, and then again, I have made my suggestions to the burning issues in the House. I will have no say. I will remain quiet until I see what he does. That was 2 months before I walked out. And that
Comrade
was about
Chris,
6 months after that memo.
Comrade
So,
Chris, I have it
yes,
on good authority that that wouldn't be the first time that you were either walking out or threatening to, walk out. So it seemed like each time there was any disagreement, you either threatened to resign or threatened to walk out. So I don't know if
you
you
may be
thought that was a
partly
good modus
right, but
operandi.
you may be partly right there, but the only other moment I threatened resigning was when Sisiko came in and said, "You will be the leader of this movement from J." And I said, I cannot have somebody who doesn't have his own freedom thinking he can fight for my freedom from J. So I wasn't ready to sit there and have my leader under duress in jail. So that was when I said, listen, if that will be the case, I will walk out. I will not be part of it. That was the only other occasion in which I threatened to do that. Of course, that did not happen, and I didn't go anywhere. But listen, comrade, if you are working with people and you realize they just cannot sit down and discuss problems, try to solve problems, what do? You sit there and say, if the boat is going to crash, let's all of us crash. No, no, somebody has to do something.
I understand you there perfectly, and I mean, I must say that somewhere along the line, I share your pain. Don't mind that I chuckle once in a while. I just want it to be lighthearted. I know that it's really serious issues that we are looking at here, but at the same time, I want our people to understand that there is nothing too serious that the people of Amazonia can't resolve. Because one thing is certain, we need freedom, and this freedom is priceless. We cannot trade it. We cannot trade it for whatsoever. I guess you understand as well as I do that if this movement, this liberation movement, for one reason or the other, ever happens to fail, I don't want to imagine what it will look like. Not only for you, Comrade Chris and myself, but especially for our people who are on ground zero. Because even as this liberation movement is being prosecuted, as it is going on, La République du Cameroun is continually insisting on implementing the agenda that they had, that Mr. Biya said in France, the assimilation agenda that they had and that they thought was failing. They are still bent on implementing it in the with the notion that once it fails, they should have completed it and we will be subdued forever, which means definitely that failure in this liberation movement is not an option. But there's this question I want to ask you. You said a while ago that you thought that it made sense to start bringing back people together because a lot of people were leaving your interim government, and as a lot of people were leaving, it could get to a time where you really don't have anybody at all. But most especially, you needed these people to come together because there was need for their money. Now, is it that the people needed to come together because they need their money, or because you had that tacit belief that it is a kind of unity, or at least some kind of unity of purpose that will be required to move this movement forward? Because at some
I,
point, Comrade
I
Chris,
will be
we must be able to think differently. That's why I asked you this question.
I will be very pragmatic with you. Without money, the revolution or the struggle is dead. There will be no struggle. The struggle runs on the engine of money. And guess who pays the money? Amazonians out there. So I won't pretend to you to say, oh, it was just for unity's sake. Well, if we can all come together, sit down, talk, smile, drink, exchange of some glasses, and live without money, doesn't mean anything. The struggle dies. Comrade, the priority for the diaspora in this struggle is money. Money is number one thing. So the idea was, let's bring back people who have walked away from us. If we bring back, our pool increases, it grows, and the potential for more fundraising are better. That was the idea.
Remember, I once described you, as a divider in chief, that you were one of the reasons we have a lot of division in this movement. Comrade Chris, looking at the situation as it is today, do you have the feeling that it is important to really ensure that Southern Cameroonians who work as a people?
Let me correct you, Comrade John. I'm a very pragmatic person. I don't like to beat about the bush. If we have people among us who are not straight talkers, who are corrupt, and who are fraudulent, people who want to run away from accountability, we should not condone it, because they are the reason struggles run for 20, for 30, for 40 years, whereas it should go for 5 or 2 or 10 years. Take this for example. When we started this in Zaria, you were there. I was there. I was invited there just like a citizen. You were there as consortium. They agreed on the interim government. You did not agree. You walked out from there swearing for a big conference that will bring all other groups together to compete with the interim government. I was not yet appointed anything, you know that. I didn't agree with the way that meeting was organized. You also know that, and I actually did uh, a report on that, saying exactly the way it went on. But I also stated that it is done. It is done. Let's see how we can fix it as we move on. Do you call that division or dividing? Of course not. We, if you know the people I have spoken to, Comrade John, just to see that we can have people who do not only agree, but who also can come together uh, and discuss and agree on a way forward, how they can collaborate, how they can reconcile. If you know the people I have spoken to, it will surprise you to know Sisiko, have spoken to him for like an hour, 40 minutes. I think
And
in the
when was
past
that?
I think in the past within the past 3 months or so. For about 1 hour, 40 minutes, this guy, Agbo Gibe, was the one who initiated that. They thought they wanted us to come together. I have spoken to people upon people, some leaders, some former leaders, and there are others who have reached out to me. Comrade, I'm not going to bow down and say, yeah, yeah, just because people are saying unity, unity, unity. Let me say, yeah, let's just do it. Because people have to be tested, especially people who have a pedigree for doing the wrong thing. I remember in my conversation with Sisiko, I realized they were trying to get a sound bite out of me to say that Sisiko is not compromised. He asked me, Chris, after listening to me all this time, in this conversation, can you still say I am compromised? Sisiko is compromised. I think he was disappointed when I said yes, he is. Because I don't want people coming to us to talk about unity, reconciliation, collaboration, just to have their way without seeing the need to apologize to Amazonians. Listen, I have spoken to people who do not have, who cannot point to a place in which their army is fighting in this war. You talk about division. Akwanga went to Ghana, had a meeting with La République du Cameroun, Eco. One of them who was there brought that news to me. And how do you want me to embrace somebody who is embracing our common enemy? How do you expect that to happen? I took that to ARC and I reported it to ARC. Of course, he refused it. But when the pressure became so high within ARC, he finally accepted. They actually had a meeting. Comrade, if I'm sleeping with you and I realize that I can't cover all my eyes, the best thing to do is put you away, very far away from me. And I think anything unity, I should be able to trust you. You should be able to trust me. When you say yes, your yes should mean yes. My yes should mean yes. But if I don't see that,
I think that's a fair point. So, what did Comrade Akwanga say was the purpose of his meeting with Eco?
where the purpose of the
And wait a
meeting,
minute, just for the information of all those who are watching, Eco is the Director General of External Research for La République du Cameroun.
yeah, I really don't know his portfolio a lot. I just know that I understand he's in the intelligence community there. I think so, right?
Yes, he is a Director General of External Research. That is, he's
Oh,
the
okay.
head of the intelligence community of La République du Cameroun.
Yeah. Well, of course, Akwanga didn't tell me what the purpose of the meeting was. Of course, he couldn't, knowing that he felt like I was lying against him. But of course, the meeting was, according to them, was a foundation. According to those who were there, was a foundation through which he would then Akwanga will then bring other leaders, the Bohebets, the Sakos, and the rest, to the table to discuss, to have a discussion with La Republique du Cameroun. It seems the idea was meet with each leader one by one, not in the group setting, but one by one. That was the idea. So when it got busted, I guess it couldn't move on.
But this is quite intriguing. At the same time, this comrade Akwanga is like one of the
Member
cheerleaders
of
of
ARC, the ARC.
the arrangement with the Swiss. So should I say
Yes.
perhaps that the Swiss were also aware of this and actually are favoring that kind of situation, that kind of fragmentation of the southern Cameroon side by La République du Cameroun, perhaps to weaken us and ensure that finally the talk of negotiations or mediation will be a smokescreen?
Well, whether the Swiss were there or not, I cannot vouch for that. I have no idea about that. But what I know is they met with nine delegation from La Republique, including Agbo Gibet was there, Echo, and some ladies, as I learned, they were there, and they discussed the possibilities of using Akwanga to then reach out to the rest of the Ambazonian leaders. So when I got that, I took it to ARC and said, hey, we cannot, we cannot be sitting here talking about negotiations, and one of our members is talking and holding meetings directly with La République du Cameroun and doesn't even have the guts to come here and tell us what is going on.
I recall you picked issues with the CDN for organizing a retreat with other Southern Cameroonians who are not absolutely for independence. And I think the act in particular took a lot of issues. But now I'm surprised to hear this same act taking issues with Southern Cameroonians meeting among themselves, even if some have not vouched for independence, whereas the same act has people in its ranks meeting directly with La République du Cameroun. This seems to me like the height of hypocrisy. Absolutely, if I tell you, I'm not shocked to hear this. No, I'm lying, Chris.
Well, as far as CDN is concerned, that was yesterday. For Akwanga, that was a few months ago, probably almost a year now, but CDN was yesterday. But Comrade John, you don't compare Akwanga with CDN. We know the stance of Akwanga for a free and independent Ambazonia. CDN, on the contrary, says they are neutral. Neutral. They are killing your people, and you come together and you say you are neutral in a matter in which your people are being slaughtered, and their homes are burned down, and there are hundreds of thousands of them in refugee camps. You come and you say you are neutral. If you are neutral, you are no longer Ambazonian. You are no longer for the struggle. You are on the side of La République du Cameroun. Let me tell you, before the CDN conference in Canada, they invited me, and I brought one cabinet member into that meeting, Dr. Elad, into that meeting. They wanted to see who could bring in the IG to be part of that meeting. The first question I asked them was, I'd like to know the stance of CDN as far as this struggle is concerned. And the CDN said they are neutral because they just want to see whether they can mediate peace between Ambazonians and La République du Cameroun. And I said, you want to mediate peace? So this is all about peace? This is not what the interim government stands for. The interim government stands for a free and independent Ambazonia, not some kind of peace. And by the way, you will recall that the CDN conducted a polling in which they said, I think 86% of Ambazonians they polled wanted their own country. But the CDN, in putting out their final report, stated that Ambazonians just want some greater autonomy, greater autonomy. The people are saying they want their own country, but CDN is reporting they want greater autonomy. That is not the kind of organization I will go and sit down to do what with them. We do not agree. Their vision is different. Their direction is different. Ours is different, unshaken. So why should we even go spend time sitting down to hear that? Let's go and make peace. Make
Comrade
peace.
Chris, I think,
No.
yeah, to be fair to you, I know the angle that you are coming from, perhaps if you don't have more information as to exactly what is happening, it's obvious that you would be able to, have that
Yeah,
kind of
that's why
feel.
people
Yeah,
misunderstand me when they
because,
hear these things.
sure,
They don't
because
have the information we have.
that's what I'm saying. Because if you have the information I have, and you have, a full understanding of the workings of the CDN, you will understand exactly where they are coming from. And
Comrade,
mark
let
my
me.
words, I just
Sorry,
wanted to
sorry, I'm
say
not
this.
cutting you short.
No, just
Sorry.
1 second. I just want to say this.
Okay.
In a liberation movement and in independence struggles across the world, there are always actors who come in from different angles. And I don't want to elaborate a lot of this because you don't forget that there are always too many ways to catch a rat if you don't necessarily want to hold it by the tail. And one thing that you must recognize that we definitely have been feeling in right now is we have failed to understand the need to completely also infiltrate La République du Cameroun. I will let you know, in the early days of this movement, practically all of 2017, right up to the time that we had the governing council put in place, I practically ran a lot of these things behind. I will assure you, our success in holding the Cameroon government down in an era where there was no internet depended on the people of La République du Cameroun, the people who stand in front and swear against Ambazonia, but who were able to have the position enough to have the information that we needed to do the things that we did. So there are too many approaches that we should be able to take, because there will be people who are doing a lot of things for us, but who, the day they stand and declare that I'm for independence, their usefulness is over. And I think we should be able to carry out some in-depth assessment of certain things. That's why I say,
No, I think
from your standpoint, you definitely may not be wrong when you look at things at the surface level. But when you go much deeper, you realize that perhaps if you do greater findings, we may begin looking at things from a different angle. Yes?
you may make a good point there. However, should it take a whole organization, putting a whole organization together for us to get information from some informants between La République du Cameroon and us? Should it take a whole
That's
organization?
not absolutely
Of
what
course
I said.
not.
I am not, wait a minute. I am not trying to
I
say
thought you are
that is
referring to
the
the
role.
CDN.
No, I'm not saying that is the role of the CDM. I'm inferring. I'm not an official of the CDN, so I definitely cannot really get into that. So, Comrade Chris, let's have a very short break, just so you take your breath a bit, and then we come back into some very, teasing issues. Are you aware that some in the French government in France have finally come to terms and are ready to tell the world that what is happening in Southern Cameroon is a genocide?
Well,
Just,
that is news.
just take a listen.
Des Affaires étrangères, Jean-Yves Le Drian. Rwanda, Éthiopie, Cameroun. 3 pays qui riment avec génocide, crime de guerre et France-Afrique. Notre passé au Rwanda est accablant. Nous avons échoué à prédire le génocide, à l'empêcher, à protéger les victimes, et nous n'avons même pas poursuivi ses auteurs. Et malheureusement, nous mesurons avec le récent assassinat de l'ambassadeur d'Italie en République démocratique du Congo à quel point nous avons laissé cette région de l'Afrique dans le chaos. Aujourd'hui, en Éthiopie, les crimes de guerre contre des populations civiles de la région du Tigré font rage. Mais en contradiction totale avec le droit international, nous continuons de livrer du matériel de guerre et de surveillance, ce qui tend désormais à faire de nous des complices des prochains massacres. Vous avez dénoncé un système de répression institutionnalisé de la Chine sur les Ouïghours. Bravo! Mais vos silences sur les Palestiniens, les Tamouls ou sur les crimes de guerre commis par l'Arabie Saoudite et les Émirats Arabes Unis au Yémen sont très gênants. Tout se passe comme si vos droits de l'homme étaient corrélés aux intérêts économiques supérieurs de quelques grands groupes français. Ce n'est pas ce qui est inscrit dans le préambule de la Constitution française. Et demain, Que va faire la diplomatie française face au drame du Cameroun anglophone? Dans la résolution bipartisane 684 votée en ce début d'année 2021, le Sénat américain dénonce clairement le cynisme de votre diplomatie. Je cite un extrait. La France maintient des intérêts considérables au Cameroun, mais n'a pas suffisamment utilisé son influence pour endiguer les atrocités commises dans les régions anglophones. Monsieur le ministre des Affaires étrangères, contre les enseignements de l'histoire, contre nos valeurs, contre nos partenaires et surtout contre les Camerounais, allez-vous continuer à soutenir le régime dictatorial en place au Cameroun et les massacres de plus en plus réguliers qui s'y déroulent?
Well, that is at least one area I think we have made progress, Comrade Chris. That is Sebastien Nadeau saying it right there in the French Parliament that what is happening in southern Cameroon, so do you call it the Cameroon Anglophone, is a genocide. You know, a lot of people, even in our midst, have been afraid to use that word.
Oh, Sebastien Nadeau has been saying that for quite a while. You will recall, I don't know whether you remember, I actually interviewed him on ABC like a year ago. He has been very vocal and supportive of the Amazonian struggle. The only problem is he's in a minority. He's not in the position to effect any real policy change with what the French are doing. That is the problem. You also have the same case in Germany of Christoph, what's the other name? One of the parliamentarians. I don't know why he's still parliamentarian today. But in every country, you have people like that. France, I think, is a little drop in the bucket. I don't see how much consequences it can have on French policy, especially in this struggle.
Well,
I
but
really think right now,
at least coming
I,
from an elected representative in France, I mean, it it rhymes somehow. Actually, calling what is happening in the southern Cameroon a genocide because
yes.
that is exactly what it is. And so sometimes having some members, be them whatever, actors on the international scene, referring to it as such, I think it's some kind of mark of progress, though.
It is. It is. Again, unfortunately, he is not in the majority. I think he's actually an independent parliamentarian in France, not even in any of the parties. That's a problem.
Okay, Comrade Chris, we go back to our discussion. That was just a little break to give us the opportunity to refresh one little bit. Now, I look at the situation in your interim government has become something very much like a power tussle. Yesterday, you talked about a deal between your government and the CDC. And I followed an interview conducted or a telephone conversation by Paul Nilong and a gentleman in Europe who says the company whose checks have been displayed. First, he says those checks are legit, whose checks have been displayed, that he has nothing in connection with the interim government led by Comrade Sako, does not even know Comrade Sako, and he had his private business with the CDC. He doesn't know how that connects. What do you say to that?
Well, the gentleman is lying. If you listen to Nanchop a day after the audio with Nilong came out, you would have listened to the same gentleman talking with, I think it was a message he was sending to either Mola Edi or Dr. Sako in respect of the deal. Now, let me also add this. You have heard me say this, that the gentleman you are referring to actually came to me. I guess because, being that I am on TV, my number is out there. He happened to have probably picked my number on TV. He called me. I was the point person that he called to introduce that deal. He called me, I picked the phone. He introduced himself as Elias Mose or something like that. I can't pronounce the last name. But he called me and introduced the deal. And I said, okay, let me talk to my people being the interim government, I discussed with the president, Dr. Sako. Then, since this thing is in FACO, Dr. Sako said, it is not good that he is in front. Let FACO chair meet with this guy, with me, and let's know what they are offering. Now, if you listen to his audio with Mancho, there's one thing he kept saying in there which is very factual. This deal was not about, or was never going to be about, an individual and a corporation. It was between the interim government, the people of Ambazonia, and that corporation. So, in other words, if you listen to that guy, he constantly quoting the interim government. The deal can help the interim government. The finances can help the interim government, not an individual. So, we met with him the first time, and the complaint was that the bananas were getting rotten in the bush and they were falling off. The grass
Okay.
could not be weeded because restoration forces had pursued all the workers of the plantation away. And that if we can enter into some arrangement where the workers will be allowed to get back to the farms, they can reach back, they can give the struggle, listen to me, the struggle, some monthly payments. Listen, let me be very honest and straight here with you. I see a deal today, I see a deal tomorrow, I see a deal in 2 years' time that will fund this struggle. I won't shy, I won't run away for it for as long as it doesn't end in people's private pockets.
So how did you know that the deal materialized and it was ending in someone's private
No,
pockets?
let me come. Let me make this very clear. So this deal was never to be a Sako, CDC, or Elias Mosuge thing. It was meant to support the interim government, the struggle on the ground. And I expected that at a certain point in time, if the deal goes through, the Restoration Council, at least the chairman of the Restoration Council, should be aware, the vice president should be aware, and at least the treasurer should also be aware. That would have been a legitimate deal, and nobody will have problems with it. You remember Ayaba went to London for a so-called oil deal that was a hoax. We all berated him for doing it unilaterally. This isn't different. This is even worse than Ayaba going to London, because this one was a legitimate deal, but one person took it upon himself to negotiate it. That is where the problem is. This is what happened. So after I took this, reported it to the president, he volunteered somebody and said, "Go meet with this guy, with him, sit down, you guys discuss it." I went, we discussed it. I came back after that discussion and I said, "This is about FACO. I want to leave it into your hands. You and your FACO chair can handle that." That was where I left it. 4 months after that, I went back to the president and said, "Hey, Mr. President, you didn't tell me how this deal ended." And his response was, "Oh, the offer they gave us was too small. We didn't want to go into it because the offer was too small." This was what he told me. That was about 4 months after that. And I took him for his word. I took him for his word that there was never a deal. Because I was wondering, if there was a deal, at least the vice president, the Restoration Council, the treasurer, they should all be aware. And I should be aware that it actually materialized. But no, 4 months after he said there was no deal, and I took him for his word. I forgot about it. It will surprise you. I didn't know there was a deal, that the deal went through until about 3 weeks ago. About 3 weeks ago, only 3 weeks ago. We're talking about this thing started in I think late 2020. It's only 3 weeks ago I learned the deal went through. Now, the faculty chair who was in between this Elias guy, the CDC guy, and Sako said they arranged the deal for 30 million CFA francs on a monthly basis. That is about $60,000 a month. Just imagine, comrade, this kind of money coming into the struggle. And we have fighters in Victoria, in Meme, in Manyu, in Coupe, in Indian, in Mezan, in Bui, all these places. Just imagine what this money could do for those boys. Today, we still have boys running with changshu in the bushes. Some still wearing two-rope slippers in the bushes. And this kind of deal came through. Nobody knew about it.
Comrade Chris,
So
what will you say?
let me just round up this.
Yeah.
It was when 3 weeks ago I started hearing CDC deal. And I was like, could this be the same deal that I know about? I pick up the phone and I called the FACO guy. It was then I learned, indeed, that deal materialized. But he added, the moment they reach a deal, an agreement, they both cut him off. You could no longer have contact with an agent in Europe. And he was not in speaking terms with Sako because you know the FACO problems. Sako had dissolved FACO. So
perhaps that is why the sledgehammer fell on the FACO executive.
I guess because everybody. I will not say that's the sole reason, but I would say that may be one of the reasons. But
Come on, Cristiano, what will you say to those who are, pointing out that perhaps you are only mad and exposing this deal today because you were not involved? That perhaps if you were involved and everything was going on, definitely we will not be hearing about this. That perhaps you would rather be the one out here defending it and saying nothing ever happened.
Yes, comrade, I won't shy defending it if that deal actualized and went into the national treasury.
If you had your share, not into the national treasury, if you had your share.
No, by the way, I have said to you, if any deal, no one person should have the right to negotiate a deal for Ambazonia. When I go in, comrades, this is not the first thing that has come to me that I've taken to the interim government. For example, I mentioned the Swiss people. I was a point of contact. It isn't as if I brought it in, but it happened to fall in my hands first, and I channeled it to the right quarters. You have also heard about some $135,000 of a certain deal that I brought in. Comrade, I bring in a lot of things that can help our struggle. And I'm sure every one of us, including you, if you are in the position to have some connection that can help us, you will not hesitate.
Of course, it makes sense. We shouldn't hesitate. Right. We need money to prosecute this movement, provided the money comes in to prosecute the movement and not into private pockets. That makes all the sense.
That is a problem. That is the problem. I mean, I was the first person to go after Ayaba for the London deal. You know that. And I could not spare Sako if he went for this CDC deal and put it in his pocket. And I won't spend any other person. I didn't spare Ayaba for having, Akwanga for having these meetings with Eco. We should not be doing that.
So if we do a simple calculation from end 2020 right up to this point, we're talking here of almost $800,000 that should have come in from the CDC that is not accounted for. Hasn't had any effect on the struggle.
Well, that is assuming he actually got the money. Remember, we are saying that they said, he said. So, but That is not even my point, comrade. My point is, uh, if Sako says no, no, I have a problem number one where Sako says there was no CDC due. Now you forget that I called him and I informed him, and we had meetings about it. Number two, number two, he forgets that Fako Chair carried out the whole arrangement with him, and there are some documents that change hands to prove the deal was there. So this is the problem. Let's assume, as Sako says, no, he didn't. He hasn't collected anything. Nothing. Nothing. The next question will be for you to hold a discussion to the point where documents are exchanged. That thing must be serious. That deal must be serious. The question becomes, even if you didn't collect anything, who in your government was aware of this deal? If it wasn't meant for your pocket, why was the Restoration Council, at least the chair, not made aware? Why was your vice president not made aware? Why was the treasurer not made aware? Now, don't forget, this isn't the only deal. There is another deal mentioned of $200,000 that he is said or alleged to have signed with Barrister John Fruinsa. Again, if he signed it, the money did not go into the treasury. The money, the Restoration Council isn't aware of that. The vice president wasn't aware of that. But we have learned that letterheads were actually collected from the treasury to enter the agreement. Comrade, if they say, yes, they didn't get the money, the question Ambazonians want to know is who in the interim government in the strategic position was aware of all these arrangements. If the money wasn't or meant to go into their private pockets, that is a problem.
And the $135,000 that they are talking with respect to you, what happened to it?
Forget about it. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Again, a deal comes to me. A deal comes to me, and I forward it. Comrade, listen. As I said to you before, all of us, we are all looking for windows of opportunities that can help us help this struggle. I happen to be very well connected with some warlords in West Africa. Some of them lived in Lagos, Nigeria. When I was working in the media there, I interviewed many of them. So when our struggle started, and we were looking for farm tools, I thought about some of these guys. And what I did was I reached out to them and said, hey, we really need help. You guys have been in a situation like this. I believe you can help us, give us some connections on how we can get some of these farm tools. And luckily enough, they hooked us up with somebody who was helping them during their own conflict. The moment I got that person, I discussed with the president. We had meetings with this guy. The president brought in other people, the guy you hear of called Don Wannabe. We had a number of meetings with this guy, and everybody was certain. Everybody was sure this guy we are dealing with is an honest guy. Now, I'm talking about the agent, not the person who introduced us to the agent. Everybody agreed the agent should be an honest guy after a number of meetings. After those number of meetings, comrade, I left the scene because I felt I am not in the military operations. I can hand it to them now as military people to continue with the arrangement, the purchase orders and stuff. I left it there. They went about. Sako went around, negotiated for the price of this equipment, added some big sugar canes to it, whereas I knew from our initial discussion, the guy had told us that he doesn't have big sugar cane. But I learned even big sugar cane was added. But not only that, they paid the money. Frank of Ngoketunja, I understand that all the money passed through him. A dime did not pass through Chris Anu.
Okay,
Uh,
let's say that is a given, comrade Chris. The reason some are asking about
no,
this is because
let me just round this up. Let me see
okay, do
the scheming that the leader that we told is a man of God, is an honest man, really is. So I have nothing to do with the transactions. All I brought is information. Somebody is then sent over there to go make sure that these things are in order. I have no idea. Now they go to the extent. I mean, Sako and the other people, I wasn't aware, I heard it after. They go to the extent of arranging for some farmers from this place to go all the way to ground zero to help and to train our guys. Comrade, I had no idea. How much they are paid, I have no idea. But I'm saying this to let you know these guys are very, very cornish, very, very cornish. They don't tell people this, but they rush out to say, Chris brought us somebody whom we gave $135,000, something I don't know to who was paid. What I'm trying to do is to
so
say
the
that
money was not given into your hands.
no, I don't see a dime. It's not a dime. But listen, but their idea is that I brought a con guy who duped them of 135. But listen, there's the same guy who brings us this person, Sako and the rest. They arrange with him. They send us, I think it was 4 or 6 farmers to ground zero from far away, west to ground zero. And Chris Anu is not aware. Chris Anu doesn't know how much they are paid. And 2 of these guys are killed on ground zero by the Republic. The rest succeeds to run back. Comrade, if this guy that I brought to them was a 419, how do you think they would trust it so much to even send their own people to go and die for the same deal? Just think about that. If the
Well,
guy was a
just
crook, why would they send their own people to go and die there?
well, their souls rest in peace. They
It's a sad
absolutely,
and pathetic
yeah,
story.
they absolutely were going to, contribute their quota in assisting us to attain the freedom that we all seek. But
Yeah,
Comrade
right.
Chris, one of the reasons some people appear to be lending credence to the fact that you too should be guilty of financial impropriety from the, from the general
No,
loot
that's a
that we
mistake.
are
No, no,
talking about
I
here.
wouldn't even accept that. No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't even
I'm coming
accept
to
that.
this because they say,
No, no, let me make that very clear. You
yeah, I
you
just
you
want to end up.
accuse
Let me finish this
people.
question so that you can
Okay.
answer it in a holistic manner. Let's say uh, when you got, ruffled by your interim government, the very next day you were able to create your own television channel, the ABS, and then immediately it's on satellite. When at the same time the station you were managing was suffering, getting stifled for finances. So how did you suddenly get this money to float this project and immediately have it on satellite, and you're competing with them on ground zero and in the rest of Africa?
Comrade John, I mean, they will call you a veteran journalist, a veteran reporter, isn't it? You are in the field. You are not just in the field. At least you have some knowledge of IT. Tell me what it takes to set up a television in this day and age. It can take as little as hours. I mean, literally hours. You know that. Talking about the money. I don't need to come and sit here and disclose where I got money to start a private initiative. The only thing I will tell you is that Ambazonians funded this and they are out there. Comrade John, this is what people do not know. They threatened me. They will send the police to come and break the doors, the studios of ABC, to take out the equipment. Nobody has heard this. I still have the note with me. They threatened to come and break the doors of ABC studios to pick out the equipment if I didn't surrender it right away. You understand? So, for about 2 months, or about a month after that, ground zero was literally starving, and you could hear what is going on. We're not getting anything. And certain goodwill Ambazonians reached out to me and they suggested, Secretary Chris, you started ABC in the first place. Please, why not start something new? We can support you to start this. Let's do it. Comrade, that was how ABC ABS came into being, and you can tell it is serving Ambazonia. Just imagine, today, Sako has hijacked ABC, and ABC is now all about, it's worse than CRTV. Ambazonians know that. If they are not attacking Chris, I know they are shouting the praises of Sako as in the head of state in La République du Cameroun. That's what it is doing. If ABS wasn't here today, our people would be choked in the bottle without information. So, again, as a journalist, you know that nowadays it takes no time to start a TV station. You just need some money that can kickstart it, and you figure out the rest later. I'm sure you know that.
Definitely. Chris, one of the issues that, have been raised has to do with claims that you have, a deal with La République du Cameroun authorities, which deal, was as a result of the incarceration of your mother and sister. And so you had to enter into a deal with La République du Cameroun so that they should be released. And so in fulfillment of that deal, perhaps that's why you are rocking the Sako boat. That's what they say. So what do you say to that?
Well, that is not what they say. That is what Sako says. Comrade, many people are wondering why Secretary Chris suddenly, very suddenly turned against Dr. Sako. The reason is not far from what you are stating there. You will recall, comrade, when the wing of Sisiko was here to eject Sako from the leadership, I fought for him. I defended him because I trusted him. I thought this was a brother. I thought this was, he had only been there for about a year or so. And I took him seriously. I thought they said he was a pastor. I took him really seriously. When my trip to Boya was here, the wing of my trip to Boya was here, I defended him also, but don't forget, I was the one who called for the audit. And once the auditor put out their report and vowed that there was no misappropriation by him, I defended him. I stood by him. And I have done so throughout the 4 years of his leadership. Now, when I walked out of cabinet, something happened. Dr. Sako did not only, when he realized that quite a number of cabinet members saw with the point I was making for some reforms, changes, things to be resolved, things to be fixed in the cabinet, in the interim government. When he saw that they were siding with me, he began to call cabinet members one after the other, telling them, Secretary Chris is compromised. Secretary Chris is compromised. He was compromised at the time that his mother was released from Sed or Kondenge in Yaoundé. Comrade, he didn't say this only to one cabinet member, not to 2 cabinet members, not to 3 cabinet members, even in a meeting with activists, in the presence of 9 activists. This is the narrative that Sako took out there. And after hearing this, I couldn't believe my ears that for somebody who knows better, for somebody that we thought we could vouch for, he will be the one carrying out this assassination, baseless assassination behind me, who have fought for him, who have defended him. I told him he crossed the line. Because, comrade, when you say to Ambazonians somebody is compromised, if it turns out it is true, they will stone you and they can assassinate you. That is what Sako wanted to see. He wanted Ambazonians to assassinate me. If it was true, I could be assassinated. That Chris Anu compromised or saw this struggle. It originated from Sako. That is where I crossed the line up to today. He brought a bishop. I confronted him over this issue. I said, did you call cabinet members and tell them Chris Anu is compromised? He was shaking around and asking me, who told you that? I didn't speak to any cabinet member. I didn't tell, is it the vice president who told you? Is it the vice president who told you? I said, Mr. President, did you tell any cabinet member that Chris Anu is compromised? He denied. The bishop who was there is a witness.
Comrade Chris, I want to ask you this.
Let me round this up.
Okay, do.
The bishop is a witness. But let me ask you something. If Chris Anu is compromised, what is my brother doing in the bush? What will he be doing there?
Maybe.
If Chris Anu is compromised, comrade, my mother was released from that place, I think it's probably a year and a half now. My mother was on the way to the US. They confiscated her passport at the Yaoundé airport. They still have it to today. My mother cannot travel out. La Republique has my mother's passport. Tell me besides this, tell me what changes you have seen in Chris Anu's outings. Is he saying something different from what he has always said? I think I have been the most consistent in what I do, in what I say.
Perhaps you were bought over to rock the Sako boat, and they consider that that's what you are doing. That you are fulfilling.
Sorry, I didn't get a context from the beginning.
That perhaps you were compromised to rock the Sako boat, because as he says, the notice, like we notice, he's the last man standing. So they are using you to destroy him so that the struggle should fall. So perhaps you are doing this in fulfillment of the arrangement.
He is the last man standing for La République du Cameroun. Comrade, tell me, if you are not standing for La République du Cameroun in an institution that is called a government, why would you not want to stand elections? Why?
Comrade Christiano, we will get to that issue of elections. You yourself, you have on a good number of times accused some people in the struggle as being compromised. Now, this ball too was thrown onto you. You are compromised. Do you always have the evidence for some of those claims that you have made on other people? I even recall that you talked about your story.
Give me one example. Give me one example.
I recall that it's like you talk of yours truly as being compromised.
I don't recall that. I remember saying that you asked for some money in the conference that we had in DC. I think I recall that very well. We had some issues where you were supposed to have borrowed some money and then went to the conference, asked for your share of the money, and then came out and vilified me for saying you got your share of the money.
Same full lies, same money that I'm sure was gobbled the same way that we are talking about this, because the entire money raised from the Washington Collaboration Conference never got used anywhere. So let's move on, though.
Remember, Sebastian was in the middle of it. You had borrowed money from Sebastian, hoping to get it back from your share of that conference.
Listen,
and you
no
did
money,
exactly
no,
that.
no money was borrowed from Sebastian.
Sebastian said you borrowed money in anticipation of getting money from the conference.
That's what I'm explaining to you here. Sebastian received a request to disburse $185 for a mail to be sent by DHL to Cairo, to the headquarters of CAF. That was to make sure that they stop Cameroon from hosting the Nations Cup of that 2019. That is, Sebastian is alive. He should be following this broadcast. $185. And Sebastian, in doing the transfer of the $185, dispatched $200 by Cash App. The request was for $185. And I still have the receipt of the transmission of that mail to the headquarters of CAF.
That is not the receipt,
Cairo. Right? That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Receipt, right?
No, this is not it. Of course, I can put that online eventually. It's just like to say, sometimes there's a lot of mix-up and things that go around that really don't resemble us as Southern Cameroonians. So let's move past that, though.
Let us be honest.
Yeah, let's move past that. I want to ask you
a share of the money. I don't say things behind. You ask
That's
for
what
a share
I am telling you. I am telling you. Comrade Chris Ano, no, Comrade Chris Ano, I am telling you, this was after the Washington Collaborative Conference.
Correct.
When we had the fundraiser. We had just come out of a collaborative conference. We signed a document, all the leaders, all the movements. And this document, a hard copy, following internal channels that we had and connection I had at the office of the CAF president in Cairo. They needed us to send that document signed by all our movements, warning for CAF. If you go back to that document, signed from the Washington Collaborative Conference, you see the clause on which all the movements were warning CAF not to allow the organization of the Nations Cup on our territory. Recall, we were fighting from various angles to halt that tournament. And I requested $185 to dispatch that document by DHL, and which happened. So let's leave it at that, though. That's the subject for some other.
I wasn't privy to that. I wasn't privy to that arrangement.
I know. That's why I'm saying that whoever gave you information.
However, you will recall that a group collected the money from that conference, deposited in some bank in Chicago, as their share of the boot.
No, it was not a group. You recall the individual was Mr. Mancho Vincent, who is a member of your interim government even. It was Dr. Mancho Vincent. And that was in Minnesota, not even in Chicago. In Minnesota.
Okay, Minnesota, right?
Yes, that was Dr. Aaron Mancho.
No, he wasn't a member of our interim government, of course not. He wasn't a member. How would a member of our interim government collect money, go and create his own account, put the money inside?
We shall get to that. Because you see, when we confronted Dr. Mancho to ask what happened, he said he was a member of your interim government and did that in good faith.
That's what he said. What we said.
But even until today, he is today one of the key defenders of Dr. Sako. He's a member of your interim government. He's listening to the podcast.
I don't know the guy.
Of course, Dr. Mancho should be watching the show. So he's watching the show. He knows what I'm talking about. And if I'm telling lies, he should be able to come out there quickly and say, Mbakuru, you lied. That's exactly what I'm saying. I have the communication I had with Dr. Mancho at that instance. So let's move on, Comrade Chris. At what point? Because you just said, in reference to Comrade Sako, that they said he was a pastor, so you believe he could be telling truth. At what point did you realize that Comrade Sako was not a man to be trusted?
When he went around, just about 3 months ago or 2 months ago, when I learned the information that Chris Ano is compromised was coming from him, a man who should know better, a man that I could say, if anything was going on in this interim government, both of us knew about it. You understand? So if I realize if this guy could go behind and assassinate me this way, this guy cannot be trusted. And I drew the line.
Now, let's talk a bit about what is happening right now. I understand Comrade Sako saying today that the Restoration Council is compromised. And that because the Restoration Council is compromised, the only organ that has the power to tell him that he's impeached or he cannot be president anymore is the group made up of mainly the heads of the LGAs. What do you say to this?
Well, even the LGAs do no longer recognize him as the leader of Ambazonia. Recall that the LGAs came out about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, put out a statement stating that at the moment, they will not want any of their constituents to pay any dues to the national treasury or pay any draft to the national treasury. That means they don't trust Sako to handle their money. They actually stated that they trust the ability of the Restoration Council to resolve the crisis. And so when he says that all the counties can do this or do that, that is a man who will frame up anything just to have his way. Come on, which was it the counties that swore him in? Of course not. It was the Restoration Council. With which constitution was he sworn in? The constitution that is implemented by the Restoration Council. So, again, it is just an effort to see that he can stay there. Now, don't forget this. Ever before he said that, when he heard that the Restoration Council was calling for elections, you know, the first thing he did was get Barrister John Frunso and Tim Mbisa to write a statement, put out a statement to the Restoration Council to the effect that the Constitution says, falsely though, that the president, Sako, would stay until we get to Boya. That was ever before the Restoration Council was going to talk about the condition for the elections. From there, number one, they set out to disrespect the Restoration Council. No, the Restoration Council has the final say as far as governance issues in this interim government is concerned. And that is why they are pushing Sako out, because what powers does he have to think that he can dissolve a people's house? He did not put it together. Comrade John, remember, the Restoration Council is a product of Zaria, isn't it?
No, by
It's
the
a
way,
product of
by the
Zaria.
way, I wanted to make that quick clarification, Comrade Chris. The Restoration Council is not even just the product of Zaria. You will recall that this Restoration Council is a successor body of the Leadership Council of the Governing Council.
Correct.
And that the Leadership Council of the Governing Council was made up of leaders of all the movements, groups, and organizations that were under SCACUF, and that eventually became part of the Governing Council. And that when Comrade Ayuk Tabe put in place an interim government, he simply transformed this body into the Restoration Council and made a few additions. So which therefore means that that Restoration Council is not, absolutely, is not even a body that Comrade Sako, to be very clear, that anyone could even go close to, because it precedes all of you. All
That's
of you.
correct. That's
Completely.
correct.
Now, but the question I want to ask you is, when he, Sako, was made, the acting interim president of your IG, after Sisiko Ayuktabe was picked up, and eventually impeached, got Ayuktabe impeached and got him installed, were the chairman of the local government areas in existence?
No.
Were they part of the Restoration Council?
No.
So how do they become supreme?
That's a
That is
question.
the question I'd like you
That's a
to answer.
question. I hope you invite him and ask him those questions. No, they were no. Remember that county by county came up after the ASS conference in Berlin, 2019. Uh, until then, only different groups and countries and regions were represented at the RC. It was after Berlin that we decided that every LGA should now have two representatives at the Restoration Council, now including the countries and the regions and the groups. So, again, I think he is just fabricating these things to have his way and represent La Republique du Cameroon out here. But unfortunately, Ambazonians are kicking him out.
Comrade Crisano, let's have one last break and then we conclude. We've been on this, this discussion, this panel discussion for about 2 hours now, and we should be rounding up. But let's have this quick visit to our noisy neighbors. I'd like you and I to, enjoy the president of the, they call it the, how am I forgetting, the Constitutional Council of our noisy neighbors country. I'm talking about La République du Cameroun. Just let's take a look at him going to work.
Supervisé. Ok, du tout, il n'est pas belle sur ça.
Let me just say Zamba, like they are saying that themselves.
What is the name
reaction
of
does
this guy?
this provoke in you?
What
His name is
the name
Clement
of this guy?
Atangana.
And you said he is the chairman of their Constitutional Council?
The Cameroon Constitutional Council, our noisy neighbors.
This is a man, I believe he should not be less than 85 years old, probably with dementia already. And this is the man who has to preside over the document, the Constitution, as you put it, that governs how many million people? Well, it is not strange, in that country, the president looks the same. I mean, I saw one occasion where his trousers dropped in the meeting of Central African leaders. The wife had to help him to quickly grab it up. The president of the Senate, I don't know whether he's still alive.
He's there.
He's still there.
He's being carried
Looking
around.
the same.
This one even works. That one is carried around.
Right.
Did you watch?
You talk about their National Assembly, their parliament.
Did you
Almost
watch
the same.
Did you watch the president himself at the field of play handing the trophy?
I did. I didn't watch him handing the cup. I don't know. I've heard some people make some comments about that.
Gracious.
I didn't watch
I just erroneously I forgot to bring it to share for us here. But I mean, it was a Nigerian gentleman commenting on it, and it was dying of laughter. The president of FIFA, Infantino, had to be the one helping him to hold his hands for him to hold the cup. Of course, if you are giving Clement Atangana 85 years, Bia is turning 89 on Sunday. Are you aware?
Okay.
On Sunday, February 13th.
It's a country made up of a leadership that is all disabled.
And that brings me to perhaps one of the last questions on this broadcast. Now, if I look at what is happening in your interim government, with people dissolving, the bodies that brought them to power, shutting down the constitution, ready to shut down everything and declaring that it is onto Boya. That means if it's 100 years to get to Boya, it's for life. Are we not likely, if nothing is done, to find ourselves at the same level? What we are living at right now?
Well, one thing I can assure you, comrade, is that I will not belong to an organization where leadership is corrupt. And I will call it out wherever I find it. Because listen, if we are fighting La République du Cameroun against not only colonization but also bad governance, because I believe if things had worked as planned from 1961, we won't be here today fighting to go back to the status of 1961. But we cannot be fighting to defeat a corrupt government and at the same time just be doing the same thing, harboring the same type of leaders, building the same kind of structures. How do you even imagine that without a country and without a proper government, somebody is soliciting for motions of support? Come on, come on. Isn't this what we see in La République du Cameroun? So, comrade, listen, if this is a government, it should be a government. I'm not saying everything has to be so transparent and so sharp as in a real government. But I'm saying that things like elections are not there to take you out of government. At least for our constitution that I know, it doesn't even have a term limit, like you rule for 2 terms or 3 terms or 5 terms and you can't stand again. Dr. Sako had the chance to just go stand election, win, and continue. But when you find him saying, I just going to be here till I get to Boya, no election thing, something is wrong with that. It is no longer a government.
No,
That's
but
the problem.
he said you guys were all corrupt. You had oiled the system, and the elections were not going to be free, fair, and transparent, and that the elections were rigged in advance against him.
Who was rigging it in advance against him? The same constitution that changed him from interim president, from acting president to president. It's the same piece of paperwork. The same constitution that gave him 2 terms is still there. The same constitution impeached Sisiko. Now, in all of this, he had no problem, right? Until now. Has anybody changed it? Of course not. And he swore an oath to respect that same constitution. Nobody has changed it. It has not been revised. In fact, if anybody should revise it, it was his duty within the past 2 years to make sure that it was revised. He did not do it because in his mind, he was planning, I'm going to be here to you, boy. There should be no elections.
Well, this will be the last question for you on this broadcast. I suppose you have read an article released by Comrade Wilfred Tassang from the prisons in Kondenge, in which he styled Comrade Kometa as a CPDM, chairman of the Restoration Council, and he had a lot of things to say about you. What's your comment about the accusations he levied against you in that outing?
I
I should even say the article is purported to have been written by him, because I wonder, would the level of detail that's inside there for someone in incarceration, whether he was able to have access to wherever to have all that information.
Well, I would take it to be his, considering that his byline is there. But the only thing I can say is that I think Comrade Tassang has stayed in prison for too long. He has lost touch with reality out here. When the same commenter impeached Sisiko, he was not CPDM Restoration Council, isn't it? Think about that. The same commenter impeached Sisiko. No, he was not called labeled CPDM because I guess Tassang wanted Sisiko impeached. Comrade, Tassang has been out there writing a lot of what I would consider loud sounding nothing. You would think if Tassang was the smart guy, the intelligent guy that many people think he is, when situations like this come up in the interim government, to which is an integral part of it, you would call the parties and say, hey, comrades, what is going on? Please, let's fix this. Let me see if I can intervene. Let me see if I can help in any way. Can you imagine that Tassang has not as much as called me once? I mean, one time to say, hey, Secretary Chris, what is going on? What
Comrade Chris,
happened?
I think it will be unfair for me not to ask you this question that
Yes.
when you refer to all what Comrade Tassang has been writing from that prison for all this while, that was being written in
Yes.
favor of your interim government as hogwash today, is it simply because he happened to have
No,
crossed
no, no, no. You
your
are
path in
mistaken. I
this
didn't
one?
say all that he has written. I said all that he has written recently during this crisis.
Okay.
And the reason I say so is because if he was a smart person, somebody with wisdom, he would not want to write anything without listening to the different parties involved. I communicate until this thing started. I communicated very well with Tassang Wilfred. He will call me or he will write to me, and I will call him. We will talk about the struggle, talk about the interim government, even talk about some of the issues in the interim government. At times, Tassang, myself, the vice president, the president, we have meetings together to discuss the interim government and the struggle. But this thing started. You think Tassang will pick the phone or text or chat with me and say, "Hey, Secretary Chris, what is going on? What is it that I am hearing?" No. The only thing I saw was he began writing all these derogatory, defamatory articles that he writes out there. And you know what? I just cut him off. That's not a leader. The leader should be able to reach out to find out what the problem is before taking sides. In fact, if you ask him, he will tell you. When I saw him, he started writing, they forwarded one of his pieces to me, and I took it, forwarded it back to him. I was like saying, "Did you actually write this?" He now reached out to me and said, he started asking, "What is the problem? What is going on?" And I said to him, "Comrade, if you truly wanted to know what is going on, you would have contacted me instead of going out trying to vilify me without knowing the picture of this thing. You go out to vilify me. Since you claim to know everything, you will not hear anything from me." And I cut him off. I think we should begin to act in a really responsible way.
What is good for the goose, they say, is good for the ganders, right?
And
Because
what
those
do you mean by
who
that?
perhaps, I'm just throwing that as a jest, that perhaps those whom a lot of his write-ups did scratch yesterday will say, serves you right, that perhaps he didn't also consult them before writing. But I think, in all fairness, we need to create an atmosphere which enables all the heat that we are facing today to simmer. We need to be really organized once more to move our struggle forward. And all I can say at this point, Comrade Chris Sano, is just wish you good luck in your endeavor in trying to bring sanity in your group, in your organization. I will make an attempt to get to Comrade Sako if he is available. So we also have a conversation like this, because it will be fair enough to have these conversations across the board, just so that we're able to express ourselves and see how perhaps we come back to a point of convergence. Sure, you are aware, as much as I do, that it really doesn't fix this this entire movement when we have this kind of situation, because they will not be referring out there to the interim government. They will be referring to the entire movement. Perhaps your final word on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. What I would like to say to every Amazonian out there is that, listen, comrades, uh, we want to get to Boya. We want to get to Boya. We cannot get to Boya with the same type of leadership that we are running from in La République du Cameroun. And I, for one, will not be part of an organization that just play for people to see, to the gallery, to give the impression of we are doing this, we are doing that, whereas nothing is being done and there is corruption in between and problems are not being resolved. What has happened is only an opportunity, the way I look at it. Because just imagine if we got to Boya and Sako says, he will be president for eternity until he dies. Would that have been what we're fighting for all these years? So, if anybody takes power and would not want to relinquish that power, especially when improprieties are concerned, it is but normal that every one of us should stand up to that person, and not only in the interim government, I believe, also in every single organization that says it's fighting for the independence of Amazonia. We will get better, and La République du Cameroon will continue to hear from us, even in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. I know it was absolutely my pleasure having you on this show. And I sure suppose we shall have another opportunity to talk again. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, and friends of the people of the Southern Cameroons, thank you for your time and thank you for having me in your homes, on your phones, on your TV sets this day. Until we meet again on this platform, have a nice time.